If you had $1 million saved for retirement, how would you plan on turning that portfolio into retirement income? Would you follow the 4% rule? Might you buy an annuity? Or would you use retirement income guardrails? Well, in this video, we're going to compare the pros and cons of the 3 most popular retirement income strategies so you can decide which one best fits your retirement goals. If you're new here, my name is Ben. I've been a financial advisor specializing in retirement planning for almost 20 years, and I want to make your retirement even better. All right, let's start with the classic, the 4% rule. With $1 million, you'd withdraw $40,000 in your first year of retirement. Every year after that, you'd adjust that $40,000 for inflation. Based on this historical data, this approach has worked over 30-year retirement periods, including financial downturns like the financial crisis of 2008. Let's go over some of the pros of the 4% rule. The number 1 pro is simplicity. Really easy to understand and implement without a financial advisor or without complex retirement software. You can easily build the 4% rule into a pretty simple spreadsheet. No complicated investments or insurance products needed. The original research was actually just built on 2 investments, large company stocks and very simple government bonds. Pro number 2 is historically it's pretty reliable. Based on historical market data, the 4% rule has held up over most 30-year retirement periods. So that was the pros. How about the cons? The cons of the 4% rule is that it ignores human nature. The 4% rule is very rigid. You just can't deviate from an inflation-adjusted 4%. When the market is doing really well and our balances are going up, it's pretty normal to want to spend more. When the reverse is true and the markets are in the dumps, it's pretty normal to think about where can I spend less. That's just basic human nature, but it's not compatible with the strict rules of the 4% rule. The next con of the 4% rule is there are no guarantees. You could still run out of money, especially if you live well beyond a traditional 30-year retirement or you face really poor market returns early on, which will erode your portfolio. Another con of the 4% rule is it's emotionally pretty difficult. Watching your account balance fall in a bear market while continuing to withdraw can cause a lot of anxiety and it can tempt you to make emotional financial decisions. Another con of the 4% rule is it's kind of one size fits all. It doesn't consider individual variables like your health, your lifestyle, or what sort of flexibility you might want in your retirement planning. You can underspend or overspend. And the biggest drawback for me of the 4% rule is that it is historically really conservative. The 4% rule is based on a worst case scenario, meaning that it's a very conservative withdrawal strategy, and the likelihood that your retirement starts in a worst case scenario is certainly possible, but it's not likely. Believe it or not, over 2/3 of the time, a retiree would finish a 30-year time horizon still having more than double their starting principal. That's right, that means starting retirement with $1 million, spending an inflation-adjusted 4% per year, and still ending retirement with $2 million. Historically, this happens about 66% of the time. The median wealth at the end of your 30-year retirement on top of the 4% rule with inflation-adjusted spending is almost 2.8 times your starting principal. In fact, less than 10% of the time does a retiree ever finish a 30-year retirement with less money than they started with. In fact, only 4 times in the modern era, 1929, 1937, 1965, or 1966, all pretty bad years in the market, either by market standards or by inflation standards. So when you base your withdrawal strategy on a worst case scenario, really shouldn't be surprised that you'll often underspend the potential of your portfolio. All right, so in summary, the 4% rule is time tested and it's simple to implement, but it could cause you to significantly underspend the potential of your portfolio, which would enrich your beneficiaries, but would potentially leave you with some regret. But what if you wanted a guaranteed monthly paycheck no matter what the stock market does? Let's talk about immediate annuities and why they're loved by some retirees but loathed by others. So what does that look like with an immediate annuity? Well, you give $1 million to an insurance company, and in exchange, you get a monthly paycheck for life no matter what the stock market does. And at current rates, as of 2025, a 60-year-old might get about $50,000 per year, depending on gender, health, and other options like inflation benefits or survivor benefits. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of an immediate annuity, starting with the pros. So the first pro is, like you might expect, guaranteed income for life. You're going to receive a predictable monthly income benefit for as long as you live, no matter how the stock market does or any other factor of the market. Stocks, bonds, you name it, you're totally in the clear. Next benefit is simplicity. You don't need to make any investment decisions or portfolio management. None of those are required. You simply hand over a lump sum and you get paid automatically. Honestly, nothing could be more simple. The next benefit is longevity risk protection. An annuity is going to eliminate the risk of outliving your money, which is pretty ideal for people that are concerned about living into their 90s and beyond. So if you're the type of person that's got 5 aunts and they all live to age 100, you might want to consider an annuity. The next pro of an immediate annuity is peace of mind. Market downturns mean absolutely nothing and they won't affect your retirement income. Obviously, this can reduce anxiety and it can reduce emotional decision making in retirement. And then finally, the last pro of an immediate annuity is mortality credits. So your income is actually enhanced by something called mortality pooling. So those who die earlier subsidize those who live longer, which can make payouts more beneficial than something like bonds or CDs. So if you're the healthiest guy on your block, you might want to think about an immediate annuity. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows for annuities. There are some cons. So the first con is loss of liquidity. Once you buy that annuity, your lump sum is obviously gone, and you can't access that money for increased spending or an emergency or really any other spending. The money's gone. It's essentially a pension now. The next con is inflation risk. Unless you purchase inflation protection, which is going to lower your starting payments, your income stays flat, while cost of living may rise over time. In fact, it's almost certain to rise over time. In fact, while an immediate annuity will provide more income right away when compared to the 4% rule, 50,000 versus 40,000, the 4% rule is inflation adjusted, and at a basic 3% average inflation rate, it's going to actually catch up and surpass the immediate annuity within the first decade of retirement. So immediate annuity starts out higher than the 4% rule, but because the 4% rule ratchets up every year, it'll probably take about 7 or 8 years to pass the immediate annuity. The other con of an immediate annuity is there really is no market upside. Unlike an invested portfolio, there's really no chance for growth or capital appreciation. Your income is fixed, for better or for worse, or if you choose the indexed option, is just moderately indexed, but again, you start with a lower amount. Another con of the immediate annuity is there's really no legacy provisions. When you die, the income simply stops. Unless you choose a joint or a period certain option, which again is going to reduce your monthly payment, your heirs are likely to get nothing. So in summary, an immediate annuity offers guaranteed income that you can't outlive, which is great, regardless of what the stock market does. But if you're a long-term investor, and if you're optimistic, as I would encourage you to be, losing the upside potential of your portfolio could leave you with some regrets. So annuities offer peace of mind, but what if you want to keep control of your money while adjusting your income with the markets? Let's talk about retirement income guardrails. So this is the strategy that I most commonly use with my clients. You start with $1 million and a 60-40 stock to bond portfolio. You start with about a 5.4% withdrawal rate, which is significantly more than the 4% rule and about tied with the immediate annuity, 5.4% of $1 million, $54,000. But here's the twist. Unlike the 4% rule and the annuity, when the market drops, not if, but when the market drops, you're going to need to reduce your retirement income at least until the market recovers. But it's not all bad news. If your portfolio grows, so does your retirement income. Think of it as rules-based flexibility. You determine when to adjust your income based on portfolio performance. So what are the pros and cons of retirement income guardrails? Well, let's start with the pros. The pros are built-in flexibility. This strategy will adjust your income up or down depending on portfolio performance, helping balance income and longevity risk. Another pro would be higher starting withdrawals. So this strategy allows for a higher initial withdrawal rate, 5% versus 4%, because you agree to cut back during market downturns. Another pro is it's also market responsive. So it protects you during bad markets and rewards you in good markets by automatically triggering income changes when needed. Fortunately, with the stock market, we have more good years than bad years, which means more income for you. Another pro to guardrails is it gives us better behavior control. So having very clear rules-based boundaries can reduce emotional decision-making in volatile markets. Also, guardrails are very legacy-friendly. Unlike an annuity, you keep full control of your portfolio. Anything that you don't manage to spend can easily be left to your heirs. Again, not all sunshine and rainbows for the guardrails. There are cons. So some of the cons of guardrails are it requires monitoring. So you or your financial advisor must regularly track your portfolio and adjust those withdrawals. This really is not set it and forget it like the 4% rule or an immediate annuity might be. Income can and will go down in a bad market. Your income will be reduced when it hits the lower guardrail. It does make budgeting more difficult. You'll need to know where you're going to cut in your retirement budget ahead of time. Yes, you do start higher than most of those other withdrawal rates, but it's almost certain at some point in your retirement you will have to reduce. So you got to be prepared for that. Another con is that it's more complicated. Compared to the 4% rule or an immediate annuity, it's harder to explain and it's harder to implement without professional guidance or retirement planning software or some really slick Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. Another con of retirement income guardrails is it's not widely known or supported. Most financial institutions don't offer built-in tools for automation of this strategy. You're probably going to need a specialist advisor or your own DIY setup. All right, now that you've seen all three strategies, let's stack them up side by side. Depending on your number one retirement goal, whether it's flexibility or peace of mind or maximizing for fun, I'll help you see which option stands out for you. So if your number one retirement goal is flexibility, I would rank guardrails, then the 4% rule, then an annuity in a distant third place. If your number one goal is max spending, i.e. max fun, early on in retirement, then guardrails wins, followed by the 4% rule and an annuity coming in a distant third place. If your number one goal is protection against longevity, then an annuity honestly can't be beat, and the 4% rule and guardrails are about tied. If your number one goal is to die with zero, which is a strategy and a book that I love, then an annuity absolutely can't be beat. Guardrails might be a close second, and the 4% rule is a distant third. If your number one goal is not worrying about the stock market ever again, well then an immediate annuity is going to be the winner. with the 4% rule and guardrails not even on the podium, because you need the stock market, you need a basic portfolio to be able to do either of those strategies. So there you have it, the top 3 distribution strategies for $1 million retirement portfolio. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm Ben. I hope this video helps make your retirement even better, and I'll see you on the next one. If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. And if you love this video, I think you'll love this one next.